Hello card friends, I'm Chaz and this is Rainbow Reverse. You know, fun story, I had an idea for this video a couple days ago, started doing some research on it, and wouldn't you know, what I saw when I was at work, that Solemn Vanguard already uploaded a video on this topic. But you know what, our lists are a little different, and we've got some different insights and sentiments to share, even though a lot of the cards overlap. So I was looking at cards from overdress that would be good for the premium format. Now, these cards are more so ones that have potential. I'm not necessarily saying that any of these cards are really broken and busted right now, and you should definitely go get them, but these are certainly cards to look out for. Maybe keep a couple around to help build some of your decks, because these could be really good as future support comes out, especially if any ban lists hit for the premium format anytime soon. These newer cards could have a much better impact at that point, especially. I'm not an expert in like every clan in premium, so I can't claim to know everything that will be good, so I may miss some cards that you think are really good. Feel free to drop any suggestions in the comments, or even make your own video about what cards you think are good in premium, because that would be cool. Alright, so I'm gonna start with just generic things that can kind of go across the board. Front triggers can now be used by every clan. I personally don't really use front triggers that often, and in premium they haven't necessarily been that essential before. However, now every clan can use them, so maybe there are some decks that could work really well with front triggers, so keep that in mind. Another thing is these new grade 1 sentinels that have the extra text that if you have one or less cards in your hand when you play them, you don't have to discard for their sentinel effect, which I'm not saying these are necessarily 4-ofs to run in decks, but in certain situations that could come in really handy, or for certain matchups. Again, just something to keep in mind when you're deck building. Over triggers. Now, there's a lot of debate on whether these are good for the game and should be allowed. That's not what this is about. Right now, they're allowed, so you should definitely put one in your deck. The ones that are particular to nations are obviously good, but there are some situations in which the Cray Elemental Overtrigger might be the one to go with, so keep that one around too. And then, Blitz orders. I'm not going to go through every Blitz order specifically. Some will be more effective than others, but generally these Blitz orders will give your Vanguard power to allow you to guard. At the moment, I don't think most of them are particularly useful, especially in the current meta, but these could become very powerful. Alright, now we're going to move into each nation. Some I had more thoughts on than others, particularly because I don't play every nation at the moment, so I only know so much. But here we go. Dragon Empire. I think that Verena Valiente, along with Trickstar, could work in some decks, especially ones that do a lot of Vanguard restanding. If you have the resources, you could have a restanding Vanguard and a restanding Rearguard. Depending on how your deck is built and how the meta shifts, could be very powerful to have that Verena power in addition to your Vanguard, say if you have an Overlord or something. The other card I want to bring up is Penetrate Dragon Tribash. I'm not necessarily saying that this card is really good or that it would definitely be useful, but upon reading its text, I thought it could have some situations in where it could be useful. It says, when your Vanguard attacks, if your opponent has 2 or less rearguards, put this unit into your soul, choose one of your Vanguards, and it gets +1 critical until the end of that battle. Maybe, if you want to add some pressure to your Vanguard. I don't necessarily think this card is that great, but it's something that is generic enough that it is splashable. The problem with a lot of the Dragon Empire cards were they were either very archetype specific, or I just didn't think that they were powerful enough. There were already existing cards in those various Dragon Empire clans that just do what a lot of these cards do, but better. Now, Dark States actually has a couple of cards that I think are worth looking at. The only main ride line card that I wanted to bring up right now is Master of Gravity Baromagnus. Now, this card could be good, I think, in a Dark Irregulars, Gasteel Daimonis type deck, where you put a card into your soul and give your Vanguard that power. The Barrow Magnus crit and power, along with the soul absorption and calling more cards out, depending on if there is any sort of restriction list applied to that deck, could be a good card to play. So again, keep an eye on that one. I think Selfish Engraver is so good. I think this card is great in overdress and really good for premium. Its first skill is when this unit's attack hits, Soul Charge 1. That's not the most important part of its ability, however it can add some hit pressure or at least give you resources if you need it. But its second skill is Auto Rearguard Circle. At the end of the battle this unit attacked, if your soul has 10 or more cards, put this unit into your soul and countercharge 1. This is a mid-battle countercharger, which in various Dark States decks could be very devastating for your opponent. Lastly, I wanted to bring up Direful Doll Simone. Her skill is Auto Rearguard Circle. When this unit boosts, if your soul has 5 or more cards, counterblast 1, and until the end of that battle, when your opponent would call cards from their hand to Guardian Circle, they must call 2 or more at the same time. This allows you to have a guard restrict on any unit you want attacking in any of your Dark States decks. Now, it does require a counterblast, so at the moment, that seems little, but in the future, something like this could go off. Keter Sanctuary has a couple of cards I thought were worth noting. I play a lot of Keter decks, so I was certainly trying to look for these cards. 1, Knight of War Damage Fasado. I think this card is so good. It has resist, basically. It can't be chosen by your opponent's effects, so that way, it just stays on board. It's 13k attacker. But what is so clutch about this card, in my opinion, is when its attack hits. Vanguard, Rearguard, doesn't matter. Countercharge 1, Soul Charge 1. Again, mid-battle charging as well as just that hit pressure. This card is so good. I think in pretty much any Keter Sanctuary deck, this card you could put in and do some damage. I wanted to include Platinum Wolf. I personally don't play this deck, so I don't know as much about it, but its skill is Soul Blast 2, and this unit gets plus 5,000 till the end of turn. Apparently that's good for Fenrir, so if Fenrir is unrestricted and can do whatever it wants, there's a card for you. And then another card I took note of, this one is a promo, so I'm not entirely sure if we'll get it. Hopefully we will, allegedly. But it's Prescription Angel Auto Rearguard Circle. When your Vanguard is attacked, cost Counterblast 1 and retire this unit. Choose a face-up card in your damage zone and call it to Guardian Circle. And put the top card of your deck into the damage zone face up. Now, I'm not saying this again is like an essential card, but there's potential here. Now, in any Keter Sanctuary deck that isn't just Angel Feather, you can grab a card from your damage zone and put it into your Guardian Circle. So if you damage check like a perfect guard or something, you can use this skill to pull it out, which also, again, gets around guard restrictions because most guard restrictions are from hand. So you pull this from your damage zone and then, hey, perfect guard. And in general, I wanted to talk about the Divine Sister archetype. What was great about the Battle Sisters in OTT is that they had relatively generic skills that you could splash into any build, and now with the Divine Sisters, this concept is applied to Keter Sanctuary as a whole, which now means every deck in Keter Sanctuary has access to deck stacking. Divine Sister Tartine. Auto, when this unit is placed on Rearguard Circle, cost Soul Blast 1 and rest this unit. Look at 2 cards from the top of your deck. Choose a card from among them, put it on the top of your deck, and put the rest on the bottom of your deck. So basically, look at top 2 cards, one on top, one on bottom. I think that could be really good for any Keter deck. And then the other one I wanted to bring up was Divine Sister Fasciata. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Auto Rearguard Circle once per turn when your drive check reveals a trigger unit, cost Soul Blast 2 and Countercharge 1. Again, just more mid-battle countercharge. I'm not necessarily saying you're going to want to run this one, but it does have potential, especially if you are playing a deck in Keter that will just allow you to Soul Blast 2. And you'll probably be hitting some triggers anyway, especially if you're striding, so Easy way to get some counter charge off. And now I want to look at Stoicheia. Most of these are order cards, but what's great about these order cards is you can play them in any Stoicheia clan, which means now all of these Stoicheia clans have access to these really cool recursion abilities. So if you look at Spiritual Body Condensation, play this with Soul Blast 1. Choose a card with a grade equal to or less than your Vanguard from your drop, call it to a rearguard circle, and it gets plus 5,000 till the end of turn. Easy. You can call any card you want from your drop zone as long as it is your Vanguard's grade or lower, and it gets a little power for the turn. So that means, hey, you're playing Aquaforce, pull that card back that you need. A card with a similar ability is Spurring Maiden Alenia, and her skill is auto when this unit is placed in a rearguard circle from hand, cost Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1, choose a grade 2 or less card from your drop, call it to rearguard circle, and it gets plus 5,000 power till the end of turn. Slightly more in the cost department, and it's a little more grade restricted. However, again, just a generic card that can get you cards back from your drop zone, which in certain decks could be crucial if you've run out of stuff. Another order is Tearing Malice. Play this card with cost, retire 2 rear guards, draw a card, put this card into your soul, and countercharge 1. So while you do have to get rid of 2 rear guards, depending on what deck you play, that might not be that big of a deal, but you get a soul, a countercharge, and you draw a card. I think the value on this card is just really good, so I think this could be played in any Stoicheia deck just to get resources. And the last Stoicheia order I wanted to look at was Ghost Chase. Choose one of your units, and it gets power plus 5,000 until the end of that battle. Choose one of your rear guards that is not being attacked, and return it to your hand. So plus 5,000 gets around any guard restricts if you need it. Not a lot of shield, but it could be relevant. And the real thing though is you can pull a card back from your rear guard circle to your hand, which means either you can get something that has a lot of shield on it so you can guard more, or if it has good on place ability, you can place it again and get that ability again, which again, just generating some good value. Brandgate was a little tricky. A lot of the new cards for Brandgate were very much based around these new archetypes and these new set orders. So it was very difficult to find ones that I think are generically splashable into Dimension Police and Link Joker and Nova Grappler, but there are a couple things I wanted to point out. One are the 2 world orders. In Darkness Nobody Knows, you play it with Soul Blast 1, and when this card is put into the order zone, choose one of your opponent's front row rear guards and retire it. And then Halloween Moonlit Night, same thing, Soul Blast 1. When this card is put into your order zone, draw a card. So for both cards, you pay 1 Soul Blast, and you can either retire something or draw something, which, especially for clans that don't have a lot of draw or don't have a lot of retire power specifically, it can just help get rid of those pesky rear guards or plus you more in hand that you might need. While the set order ability is not that relevant for a lot of the decks you would be playing in the clan format, their skills are generically applicable and could give D-Police, Novas, or Links just something good. And then a card that is relevant to the set orders, if you do decide to play them, you could put in Detonation Mutant Boba Mine. At the end of the battle, this unit boosted. If your order zone has a set order, put this into your soul and countercharge 1. So it can give you a soul and a countercharge if you have a set order. So this is not a bad card to look at. It's certainly really, really good for Brandgate and overdress, and I wouldn't be shocked if in premium this becomes very good, especially if we start working more set orders into the premium builds of these decks. Then this card just becomes essential at that point, because it doesn't even have to hit, it just has to boost, and you still get that soul and counter charge. So I think this is a great card. Probably want to get a couple of these. And then the last card I wanted to look at was a promo card called Rapid Charger. Auto on rearguard circle. When the attack this unit boosted hits, soul charge 1. Now, this doesn't sound that great just listening to it. However, it has a Nova Grappler type art, and I think, hey, you know what Nova Grappler decks sometimes might struggle with soul? Victor. So you could slap this into Victor and get a little more soul charging out on your field. So just something to keep in mind. I don't necessarily think this card is like, oh, you need to get this, and it's a promo, so we'll see what the situation is for it. But I personally might try this card out just because getting soul for those like turns where you just need a soul blast a lot for your restands could come in handy. So that's everything I really wanted to touch on right now. There are maybe some cards that I didn't think of or maybe missed that you think would be really good for premium. So like I said at the beginning of the video, if you want to, you can drop it in the comments down below. Or like I said, I encourage you to make your own content talking about this kind of stuff. Because hey, the more people talking about it, the more it's out there, and the easier the information will be to get. So in the future, I'd like to also make a similar video kind of in the reverse, where it's like, hey, what older premium cards would work well with some overdress decks in a premium deck build. That might come a little more down the line. I definitely need to play overdress like with people and go to locals and just get a vibe for how those decks play on their own before I can really start thinking how they would fit into premium. But that is certainly something that I want to talk about because I do really like playing premium a lot, and I definitely think if Bushiroad does decide to do a stronger restriction list for premium, which I think they should personally, a lot of these overdress cards might become more essential in these premium decks. So just something to keep in mind as we move forward. But that's all I have to say for now. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Rainbow Reverse, wishing you all the best. Bye!